Okay, I'm here to talk to you today about the importance of premarital counseling or relationship counseling or really any me and them counseling. Because really, what's the first relationship you have in your life? Parents is close. What's really the first relationship? With yourself, of course. So how many of you have ever had an opportunity to literally argue with yourself? Come on, everybody, yeah. Most of us do, right? From a very young age, we learn. So communication becomes very, very important. It's one of the most important things in just about any kind of counseling you get. Because if we aren't able to hear and speak and have those two actually connect, then we're not going to communicate, we're not going to relate, and things start going downhill very fast. So I'm going to give you, if you have pens, you might want to write this down because it's not in anything. The most basic communication exercise that you can do, and it works phenomenally, is the speaker is going to say, what I want you to hear is. So that's how you're going to start your sentence. Because I'm letting you know I'm going to say something and I want you to hear it. Okay? And when you're done talking, you're going to say, I'm finished. Because in verbal communication, you can't see the punctuation marks. So you need to say, I'm finished. Then the receiver is going to say, what I heard you say is. Because I have to take ownership for what goes in these ears. I can't say, you said, because I'm not in your head, so I don't know what you said. I only know what I heard. So it's what I heard you say is, ABC. How'd I do? Well, the goal, of course, is to get a perfect score. And if it's not perfect, then the sender may say, well, it's pretty good, but what I really want you to hear is, and all you do is say what they missed. You don't add new information, you don't change the direction of the communication. You have to remember what you said at the beginning, and all you put is what they missed. And then if they didn't do very good at all, you say, not good, let's start over. The goal, as I said, is to get perfect. The responsibility is on the sender. It's the sender's responsibility to make sure the receiver gets the information. Which means, if you're having a conversation with somebody and you're talking and you're keeping eye contact and you can kind of watch their eyes just glass over and you know you've lost them, they've gone somewhere else, you might want to stop talking because it's just a waste of time for you and them. So in giving communication and giving some kind of message, you have to make sure you're not giving a dissertation because we can't comprehend a whole dissertation in one communication. So it's got to become very short sentences, very concise, and what you learn over time a lot is that the message I'm sending is not the message I intend to send. You know, I'm a therapist by trade, and so in my office, a lot of times I'll have the couples practice this, and the one person will say, what I want you to hear is, and they will find themselves giving the information, and then they'll realize, wait a minute, that's not really what I meant, and so they'll kind of change it mid-sentence, and oftentimes I have to go, wait a minute, time out, start over. Because you've realized that's not what you want to say. Now they're totally confused, you lost them, so you got to start over. It's kind of like an eraser. You just erase it, start fresh. But I can't tell you how many times, and I'm a pretty good listener. In fact, one time I even tape recorded this. The one person said something to the other person reported what they heard, which was nothing at all like the person said, which, believe it or not, is very common. And they both agreed that's what was said. And I'm sitting over here thinking, well, I hear pretty well. And you know, the one person said ABC, and the other person said XYZ, and they agreed that's what was said. Well, no wonder there's problems, right? Because they're clearly not effectively communicating. So the most blatant I ever had was I tape recorded a session once, and I'm a perfectionist. So we get in my office, and I open the tape. Hasn't even been opened, okay? Take the cellophane off, put it in the tape recorder so you know no one else is on this tape. And I tape record the session. At the end of the session, the man accused me of falsifying the tape. I go, nobody's left the office. It's just been the three of us. The tape was in cellophane. You know I didn't touch it. Believe me, that's you talking. And the wife is just kind of sitting there going, now you understand why we have problems. And the man is just livid because he did not speak to his wife that way. But that's how out of touch we become with our communication. I mean, that's probably an extreme example. But a lot of times we become totally out of touch. And it happens over time. So if you've been in a relationship a long time, you begin to hear your spouse's tone of voice or your partner's tone of voice, and you just assume what they're going to say. Because every time they use that tone of voice, this is what they're saying. So you don't even listen to their words anymore. Just the tone takes you there. Or the body language. Well, she's upset today, so I'm not going near her. And it has nothing to do with you. 9 times out of 10, it has nothing to do with you. Nothing. Because most of us, our biggest problem with communication and our biggest issues are they're right in here. We cause it ourselves. We react to it ourselves. We respond to it ourselves. And then we throw it out there in the world and we want you to fix it. Right? That's what we do. So we have to, first of all, take ownership for, I'm the one not communicating effectively. But in order to do that, I have to engage you and give you permission to call me on it when I do it. And that becomes an issue a lot of times in relationships. Because over time, feelings have been hurt, people have felt like they've been blamed, and so you've got this defensive thing going on. And so I'm going to give you permission to call me when I'm not effectively communicating. Well, that's going to give you more ammunition, so I don't know if I want to do that. So you really have to get the other person to buy into okay, we're starting with a fresh slate here. No more blaming, no more having to have somebody who's wrong so that somebody can be right. It's about effectively communicating. So when we communicate, we connect, right? We connect. And in relationships, a lot of time, this is what we do. So we don't really connect. We kind of just kiss on the cheek and then split. So it's real quick, and we think we've connected, and okay, we've done our duty, but really we're walking away going, I don't know what it was they were talking about. I really don't get that. But do we go back and say, what are you talking about? No. Because sometimes it's a reaction to our past. So maybe we were in school and we asked a lot of questions and people didn't like us asking a lot of questions and they called us stupid or you're not paying attention, or so we don't ask questions anymore. So we're trying to figure it all out in here. The problem is there's more than one voice in here. There's a whole lot more than one voice. How many of you wake up with a committee in your head every morning? A committee in your head every morning. The minute you wake up. And it's going. It's already started. Right? So the first thing you have to do is calm down the committee. Right? So for me, the way I do it, because I'm as human as anybody else, I wake up with that whole committee going. The first thing I do in the morning is meditate. Because I need to calm this down. I mean, I communicate for a living. So I have to be effective. So I've got to calm this down. I can't let this run the show all day long. So the first thing I do personally is I meditate. Some people call it prayer. Some people call it, there's all different forms. There's all different kinds. Whatever works for you is great. But the main thing is you're welcoming the world, and it's a brand new day. Anything can happen today. And if you go into each day that way, then you're not bringing all the stuff from the past. You're not rethinking what you did wrong yesterday and how am I going to correct it today. Because the other thing that's really evident is if I'm thinking while you're talking, I'm not hearing you. Because you cannot hear when you're thinking. Can't happen. And the neat thing about being a marriage counselor is I get to see this in effect all the time. Because I'll have, like I said, I have people use this exercise, and they'll talk back and forth. And I can watch them just by watching their eyes. I can see their brain going, and I'll call time out. And I go, okay, you're not listening to a word he's saying. You're already planning your defense. So we're already in trouble here. You gotta stop. You gotta hear. Which is why this exercise is so good. It's not the way you're going to talk your whole life, But if you learn it, it gives you a tool to put in your toolbox so that when things are emotional, when there's a problem with communication, you pull it out of the toolbox and that's what you say. What I want you to hear is. Because that lets the other person know this is serious. I'm trying to say something to you and you're not hearing me, so let's go back to basics. Basics is content, not interpretation. That's communication 102. Basics is content. And too often we're listening to interpretation or we're watching body language and we're adding all of our life experience into what's being said to us and we're lost, totally lost. We're not even in the same ballpark. So the basic communication is just making sure that I hear what you say. Then I've got a 50-50 chance of being able to communicate with you. Because now I've heard what you said. So now I have a choice. I can parrot it back so that you know I heard what you said, so I know we're both on the same page. Because remember, sometimes the sender did not send the message they intend. So I may say to you, I heard you say that the house is too cold in the evening. And the sender may say, I don't know where you got that. I was talking about not liking the spread that's on the bed. Two different subjects. So if I don't parrot back to you what you said, then you don't know whether I've got it or not, even though it may be totally different words than what you used. So if I parrot it back and we both can nod and agree, okay, then we're on the same page. So then I can address what you said if it's in a question form and I think it needs addressing. I can tell you I think you're crazy, if that's my need to say at the time. Or I can say, I don't know what you expect from me, tell me more. Right? So it depends on where I'm coming from. Am I in a defensive mode? Is this a discussion that comes up all the time and I told you 32 times what the answer is and you don't listen to me? Or is this something totally new and I'm clueless, so I really need more information? And this kind of communication works in relationships, it works in the workplace big time, and it works in friendships. The problem is we live in a world that does not teach us effective communication, right? Because when you're a kid, what's the first thing you hear? Kids should be seen and not heard, right? So if you're supposed to be seen and not heard, that means you don't get to ask questions. So you watch these adults, these people taller than you, and you watch them and listen to them, and the first thing, if you're halfway intelligent, the first thing you think is, they're crazy, right? Okay? How many of you, come on, you heard your parents and you thought they're crazy, right? And so then you're thinking, okay, well, if that's how you communicate, let me watch what happens. So we watch. And probably 75% of what we learn is through observation. It's not through what we hear, it's not through what's taught to us, it's through observation. So if we watch someone say, be nice to people, and then we watch one person talk and we watch the other person start crying, get their feelings hurt, run away in fear, how is that being nice? So then we begin to think, we're crazy. Because we heard be nice, and what we saw happen did not produce niceness. So this is conflictual already. So then we get to school, right? So here we're in school, and the teacher tells us stuff. And there are good teachers and there are bad teachers, like in any something, and you don't understand it, you raise your hand. The teacher may or may not call on you. The teacher may think, well, ask questions on your break or at lunch, not during my class. May have that kind of, whoever had that kind of a teacher. I had that kind of a teacher once. You didn't question the teacher, not in front of anybody. So I was always in line and break to question the teacher because I had lots of questions, as you can imagine. So anyway, so you can question the teacher or not, depending on the teacher. So then you go home at the end of the day and you've got lots of questions built up because a lot of stuff didn't make sense that day. And you go to ask your parents. Well, what if both your parents work? And what if they're totally exhausted because they've had really hard days? And so they tell you, just go do your homework, don't bother me, just go do your homework. So you're sitting here with a book, trying to understand what you didn't understand in class, and now you've got a book and nobody there to help you. Now how am I going to do it? Who's going to explain it to me? And then we wonder why kids flunk. Okay? So communication is the basis of everything. But in order to effectively do it, both people have to engage. It takes the sender and the receiver to do it. Neither one nor the other can do it alone. And in order to do it, we have to connect. We cannot disconnect. We have to connect. That's how the communication takes place. So let me ask you this. You're in a relationship, and you think you're a pretty good listener. And so you hear someone telling you, well, you know, tomorrow we're all going down to the beach because the sun's going to come out and it's going to be a really nice day. So we decided we'd go down and we'd take care of the beach. So we're going to collect trash. We're going to make sure the beach is good and take the seaweed off. And if there's any dead animals, we're going to call marine control. And so that's what we're going to do tomorrow. That's our big day, Earth Day. We're going to save the world. And so everybody in the group thinks they're hearing the same thing. So the next morning, about 10 kids show up at the beach, and you're one of them. And you're there, and you've got your tongs, you know, those long tongs so you can pick up stuff out of the sand. You've got a trash bag, and you're ready. And the other 9 have suntan lotion, beach towels, and lunch. So what was the communication?
Going to the beach. That's all.
Exactly. We're going to the beach tomorrow. Wow, beach day. And the whole rest got lost. But again, if you don't connect back, if you don't say, well, what I heard you say was we're going to collect trash tomorrow. That's way different than going to the beach in my book, right? So you have to make sure that you're responsible for making sure I heard what you said. And then you're going to tell me, okay, well, we're going to split. You know, we can, if we do the trash in the morning, then we can do beach in the afternoon, and we're going to spend all day there. So everybody will get their way. It'll work. It's a win-win. So in communicating, it's making sure when I talk that I know what I'm saying, the message I want to get there gets there. And if you're not going to say what I heard you say is, I'm going to ask you, what'd you hear me say? Especially if it's someone that I know I already have a problem communicating with. If it's someone who I've had miscommunication with before, then I'm going to ask, what'd you hear me say? I want to make sure we're on the same page here. Okay? So here's another common one, especially in relationships. Well, no, let me not go there. Let me go to a different place. One of the best books on male-female communication that I have ever read is by Deborah Tannen, and it's called You Just Don't Understand. One of the best books I've ever read. Because Deborah writes the book to both male and female. Because in case you didn't know, male and female talk like this. Okay, male speaks Spanish and female speak German. And the whole time you're doing this tug of war, instead of both agreeing, let's learn Italian, it'll work, right? So she writes the book to both. There's a lot of studies in there, there's a lot of resources, which in general tends to be really important to men. And then there's a lot of connecting, a lot of stories that you can connect with, which is what's important to women. And those are generalizations, there's always exceptions, so don't raise your hand and tell me, but I know. There's exceptions, there are. But in general, women communicate to connect, and men communicate to share information. And so if you come home from work and you want to talk to your husband and you start telling him, well, you know, I got to work today and, you know, Susie was in a bad mood and she wouldn't help me with my work and I was all alone. And then George came in at lunch and he wanted something more. And your husband's tuned out. He's gone. A, he doesn't work there. B, he could care less. And you're not really asking for what you need, because what you need is connection. So you kind of got to let him know. And vice versa. He'll come home and you'll say, how was your day? And he'll go, fine. And then your major complaint when you come in to see me is he never talks to me. Right? I hear this all the time. So I ask them, well, what do you want? And the husband says, I want to come home. I want dinner. I want the TV. Especially if there's a game on, just leave me alone. And the wife says, I've been at work all day, I've missed my husband, I want to talk to him, I want to connect with him. Okay, but you're not going to do that by sharing what happened at work today, because he's already been at work. You both went to work. So first of all, you got to agree, leave work at work. So now what can we talk about? Because it's not that he won't talk to you, it's that you got to agree on what's the topic going to be. What's going to interest both of us? So both of us get some of our needs met, if not all. Which, believe me, you will never get all your needs met by another human being, because that's your job, not theirs. Okay? So if you know that going in, if you know, okay, he talks a different language than I do, or she talks a different language than I do. Then you go in, hopefully, more informed with better questions to try and figure out, okay, how are we going to do this connecting thing? Because I don't know what you're saying. You know, you said that I never talk to you. What does that mean? I talk to you every day. So it really is about then clarifying what you need and really asking for what you need. Because some people, when my husband and I, believe it, my husband's a psychologist, so you can imagine how interesting communication gets in my household. And we're as ineffective as anybody else, believe me. So my husband will say, I'm cold. And I don't say anything, because he's made a statement. He's cold. It's not a question. He didn't ask me to do anything about it, so I don't say anything. So a little bit will go on. I know a little bit will go on, and he'll go, aren't you cold? And I'll go, yeah, it might be a little cold in here. And I still don't do anything. Because again, he hasn't asked me to do anything, right? We're just having this statement conversation back and forth. So then he'll say, well, I wonder what the heater's set at. I go, I don't know. Wonder what it's set at. And we can go back and forth like this for an hour. For an hour. Because we're both psychologists. So we just keep the communication going, right? Now, I've been married 30 years this year. We finally have cut that down from an hour to about 20 minutes. Okay? But part of the issue, and this I didn't even get to it all, I'm running out of time. Part of the issue is culture. Because my husband's first generation Mexican American. So my husband comes from a culture where the women are supposed to fix everything. And I'm an independent as you can get, liberal feminist. So I'm not codependent at all. So you can imagine what our household's like. He just keeps putting this stuff out there and I just keep looking at it. Mm-hmm. Yep. But the good news is you can work through it, because like I said, we've been married 30 years. And we're happier now than ever. But it has been a lot about how to communicate and how to understand each other and where we come from and what we bring to the relationship, because that's a whole other thing. And then how we're going to connect, just the two of us, because it's so important.